you. Show of hands, who knows what question 3 is about? I better see NV Energy hands going up right now, by the way. The rest of you are probably a little unsure. You're seeing ads, right? This question that's coming up is the Energy Choice Initiative. It is to see if NV Energy is going to buy your power or if you can buy it from outside sources. We're still going to be the wires people and those sort of things. So that's the quick background on question 3. So if it goes through, NV Energy is not going to be the purchaser of the power or the supplier of the power that goes through the lines. Okay, so we got that. Show of hands, who has a Costco membership? I assume all of you know why you have a Costco membership. Why do you have a Costco membership?
It's because I can buy in bulk and it's cheaper.
Right answer, Patty. That's why I have a Costco membership. This simple concept is economies of scale. You buy things in bulk, they're cheaper. So here's the theory that gets to the first part of question 3. Question 3 is most likely going to be costly to folks. And that is because NV Energy is currently buying your electricity, procuring it, producing it as a bigger entity. If you let in a lot of other people in, now you're creating other smaller groups to provide essentially the same power of electrons here, just the same movement. Everyone's buying the same thing, essentially. So the first theory of this is that we can do it cheaper because we're the Costco of electricity for Nevada. We're buying in bulk for you guys. Now, let me pass this around. This is our rates. You've heard things from the other side of this issue, the yes on 3 people, that 14% lower in other deregulated areas. Well, that's because those deregulated areas, prices went up dramatically and they're now finally coming down after 10, 20 years of implementation. This first graph you see here shows where Nevada is sitting in relationship to the rates. We're cheaper than every other deregulated state, and there's 14 of them currently. Estimates put deregulation that this is talking about in California has cost $40 billion. Texas, they've spent over $25 billion implementing this program. So that's the first thing. It's also going to be costly because we don't have an open energy marketplace. So now you got to create this environment to even purchase your power from other sources. Number 1, costly. Let's talk about the second thing. This is risky, and if you've seen some of the ads, who's saying no on 3? Environmental groups, right? That seems a little odd. NV Energy isn't environmental in maybe some people's eyes, but wait a second. Environmental groups are coming out about this. Why? Because we're currently number 2 in geothermal in the nation. We're number 4 in solar, but keep this in mind, that's just total production. If you look at per capita Nevada, in other words, per person, how much solar we have the equivalent, all of us in here have 745 watts of power. We all have 3 solar panels per person in this state already. It's almost double the number 2 state in power that's already here. So when you hear that we're number 4 in solar, wait a second, we are by far number 1 per person in the amount of solar. And now this question is putting risk into us doing more solar. There's almost 1,000 megawatts ready to go now that companies want to sell to us. But this question is putting a block to it because what's the energy market going to be at in Nevada? So in order to build more solar, we're in flux right now because we don't know. Companies want to sell solar to stable entities that can provide a good price over a long period of time. This question is throwing all that out of the mix. Also, your solar customers that have rooftop solar, they're selling back to NV Energy. There's no process in place for them to sell this on the open market anymore. So again, those are the risky items with this that would somehow have to be figured out. So number 1, costly. Number 2, we have some risks to renewables, environmental things. Now finally, if if I haven't convinced you free market capitalists that in this case, competition, opening it up isn't the best way to do this, just don't do it this way. Don't do it through a constitutional amendment. And that's because it takes 2 years and 2 votes to undo this thing if it unravels. If we turn into California, rolling blackouts, and there's issues, we have this thing set in our Constitution. The best way to do this is actually to have the legislature come together, various stakeholders, have a nice long process to get it done, but don't do it through a constitution because that's not the way you generally want to do complicated new marketplace initiatives. In summary, this thing's going to be costly. No other state has done this in 20 years. It's risky to our environmental portfolios. And finally, it's a bad way to do this. If you're not convinced by the first two, just don't do it for the second reason. And we'll get it through a legislative way that's much more beneficial to the entire state. And that, my friends, is question from a biased person. So vote no on 3. Thank you.